You don't have a right to cuss people out. No, you don't have the right. You got the vocabulary, but you don't have the right. It's still wrong, even if they needed cussing out. Have you ever had to just pray, Lord, just hold my tongue? Lord, just, you know what? Because I know this isn't right. I know this is not pleasing in your sight. I know I can't go tit for tat. I know I can't do evil for evil. Lord, I want to be pleasing to you. Why? Because I don't have a right to be wrong.
We need it. A word to survive. Uplift. A word for the times. We need it. A word to survive. Uplift. A word for the time.
Amen. You may be seated. And I want you to give ear to the scripture that is about to be read to you. It is the entire 5th chapter of the book of Exodus. You can follow along in your various devices, and you can also follow on screen, but I want you to listen as it is read in your hearing. It'll be the NIV version that you're hearing, but you can follow along in whatever version or printed or electronic that you may have. But I want you to listen intently, because the story begins to take shape in that 5th chapter of Exodus, and the entire 5th chapter will be read in your hearing.
Afterward, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said,
This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go, so that they may hold a festival to me in the wilderness.
Pharaoh said,
Who is the Lord that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go.
Then they said,
The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Now let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. Or he may strike us with plagues, or with the sword.
But the king of Egypt said,
Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their labor? Get back to your work.
Then Pharaoh said,
Look, the people of the land are now numerous, and you are stopping them from working.
That same day, Pharaoh gave this order to the slave drivers and overseers in charge of the people.
You are no longer to supply the people with straw for making bricks. Let them go and gather their own straw. But require them to make the same number of bricks as before. Don't reduce the quota. They are lazy. That is why they are crying out, Let us go and sacrifice to our God. Make the work harder for them so that they keep working and pay no attention to lies.
Then the slave drivers and the overseers went out and said to the people,
This is what Pharaoh says. I will not give you any more straw. Go and get your own straw wherever you can find it, but your work will not be reduced at all.
So the people scattered all over Egypt to gather stubble to use for straw. The slave drivers kept pressing them, saying,
Complete the work required of you for each day, just as when you had straw.
And Pharaoh's slave drivers beat the Israelite overseers they had appointed, demanding,
Why haven't you met your quota of bricks yesterday or today as before?
Then the Israelite overseers went and appealed to Pharaoh.
Why have you treated your servants this way? Your servants are given no straw, yet we are told, make bricks. Your servants are being beaten, but the fault is with your own people.
Pharaoh said,
Lazy, that's what you are. Lazy. That is why you keep saying, Let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. Now get to work. You will not be given any straw, yet you must produce your full quota of bricks.
The Israelite overseers realized they were in trouble when they were told, You are not to reduce the number of bricks required of you for each day. When they left Pharaoh, they found Moses and Aaron waiting to meet them, and they said,
May the Lord look on you and judge you. You have made us is obnoxious to Pharaoh and his officials, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us.
Moses returned to the Lord and said,
Why, Lord? Why have you brought trouble on this people? Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble on this people, and you have not rescued your people at all.
And all the people said, amen. For just a little while this afternoon, as you pray with us and the Holy Spirit gives us guidance, I want to talk about another one-word subject, and that subject is freedom. Say to someone very close to you, freedom, freedom, freedom. When you consider our history as a people, and when you place it in the biblical context of the children of Israel, what you discover is that on a very fundamental human level, at every age and at every stage of human life, on some level, all of us are fighting for freedom. It matters not who you are, your age or your stage or your personal demographic. On some level, we are either fighting for, or at the very least, we are in search of this thing we call freedom. In other words, by definition, to be free is to live a life without limits. To be free means to live a life without obstruction and without boundaries and without restrictions and without any restraints. In order to be free, it is to just live and let others live. Most people each and every day are just trying to live their life with as little hassle as possible. Is there anybody here who can declare that you're just trying to be free? On some level, all of us want to be free. On some level, we're just trying to live a life without restrictions and without restraints. Just let me live and I'll let you live. You don't bother me, I won't bother you. Everybody sitting in this room today, on some level, we are struggling to find freedom. Ever since you were a child, you've been trying to get free. As a matter of fact, all the college students, raise your hand. You grew up in a household and you couldn't wait to get free from there. You said to yourself, I just can't wait until I can live how I want to live. I can't wait till I don't have a curfew no more, till I don't have to report to nobody no more. I get up when I get ready. Can't wait to go to college so I can set my own schedule. My first class can be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon if I want it to be. Why? Because I'm 18 now, and mama, I'm free. Ever since we were born, we've been fighting to be free. We don't like restrictions. We don't like boundaries. We don't like to be held back. Why? Because it is our natural human proclivity to want freedom. The older you get, the more intense your fight for freedom becomes, because even beyond college and even beyond postgraduate work, even, in your 30s and 40s and 50s, older people want to be free too. I don't know about y'all. I'm 35. I'm trying to be free from drama. I wish I had some noise in here. I'm trying to be free from dramatic people, free from dramatic situations, free from stress. I'm trying to get debt free before I turn 50. I want my house paid off. I don't like car notes no more, trying to pay them off. I'm trying to get free from anything so that by the time I'm 50, I can cruise a little bit. Then I know some people over 50 that tells you the struggle don't end there. Because now I got some older folk that want to be free from pain in their bodies and free from the pain and the stress from getting older, free from some family members that want to borrow money from you because they know you debt free and they know you did right with your money. Tell somebody around you, I just want to be free. Does anybody here get up every day with the desire to be free? That's what gets me out of bed every day. I'm working towards something. I'm pressing towards something. I want to be free from those chains mentally, physically, socially that are holding me. And so on some level, all of us just want to be free. If you narrow the lens a little bit, you'll get a clearer, closer picture, because both ethically and ethnically, people have always struggled for freedom. Ethnically, those people that we call Americans, the original Americans other than the Native Americans, these English settlers that came over here, the whole reason they left England in the first place, the whole reason they left Great Britain in the first place is because they did not want to be under the rule of a monarchy. They did not want to be told by the king or the queen of England how they should live. So somewhere in that process, they decided to migrate over here in search of freedom. Europeans migrated over here for freedom. Those from Spanish-speaking countries, when their governments were oppressing them, they came to the Americas in search of freedom. Now, Africans are a different story. We was already free, but then we were snatched from our native land and brought over here against our will. So we were already free, but then we had to fight to get free again. Ethnically, people fight for freedom. But then also I said, ethically, people fought for freedom. The equality of women. The fight that women went through historically in these United States of America just to be acknowledged on the same level as men, and then the fight still continues. Equal work for equal pay. Women doing the same jobs as men, been doing it longer than some men, but can't get the same pay than the men that supervise them. Something is wrong with that. If you've been on a job longer than somebody, have outworked them, but yet they get paid more than you. Women have been fighting for equality. Not only that, but people advocate on behalf of children, because children's rights are sometimes denied. So you have advocates for them, people that have mental disabilities. Somebody has to advocate for them. And so all over this world, people are fighting for those freedoms. People fight for their right for free speech. It's the First Amendment to the Constitution of these United States. They fight for the freedom to have speech, and writers and producers and musicians and editors and other people are constantly fighting to maintain the right for free speech. The reason you can post whatever you want on Facebook freely in America, the reason why your government cannot shut governments, or rather shut internet down like some other countries do, is because we have the First Amendment. I wonder how y'all would act if Washington, D.C. shut off the internet. I ain't talking about your Wi-Fi signal. I'm talking about the internet. Because if you live in North Korea, that's exactly what they do. But we fight for our First Amendment right, because you have a right to say what you want to say, even if what you said is ignorant. Second Amendment right. People have the right in America to bear arms. They fought for that freedom to be able to carry a firearm. People fight for that, and they maintain that. People don't want you taking away their guns. The fight has also now moved into the marriage arena. Even in the great state of Florida, people have decided that they want to be free. If I'm a man, I ought to be free to marry another man. Ain't no sense in getting quiet now, because I'm going there. If you're a woman, you ought to have the freedom to marry another woman, because we live in America. So people are fighting for that freedom. On some level, ethnically and ethically, people are in constant pursuit of freedom. And so, in the context of the children of Israel, we are aware of the story of the Israelites and how they struggled in the land of Egypt and how the Lord brought them out. But the question that you ought to be asking is, how did the Israelites get enslaved in the first place? Is it all right if I teach before I preach here? How did the Israelites get in slavery in the first place? Please understand that Israel's history did not start with slavery. And the unfortunate reality is, some people think that African history started with slavery. Point number one, if you're taking notes, your history does not have to be a mystery. Your history, my history, whatever your history is, it does not have to be a mystery if you would study. If you would read a book every now and then. Ebony Magazine does not count as a book. The blogs and the random posts that people put out there now, that doesn't count as a book. The reason other folk can tell you your history is because you don't know it for yourself. Don't let other people tell you where you come from. Don't let other people show you images of what it means to be African or what it means to be Hispanic or what it means even to be a white person. You got to study your own history to know where you come from, because your history is only a mystery if you don't read up on it. It is a crime for our children to believe that black people came from monkeys. That's a crime in our community. It's a tragedy for our children not to know who George Washington Carver is. It's a crime for you not to know who Fannie Lou Hamer is. It's a crime for you not to know the name of the individual that served as the first black man on the United States Supreme Court. How could you not know who Thurgood Marshall is? See how quiet it get right up in here? Because some of you scratching your head like, I don't know who it is. Why is your history a mystery? Because other communities, they make their children learn the history. They pass it on orally through generation after generation. But black folk, for whatever reason, we allow our history to remain a mystery because we don't read up on it. We did not evolve from no monkey. You were not some caveman. The black man was not some mongrel, some caveman that just dragged his woman around by the hair. Where did you get that from? But if you see I'm telling you, black people were not just out in the trees and out in the woods with bones in their ear and earrings and all plates all in their nose. That is National Geographic. But if that's all you see, because think about it. What images did they show you of Africa on TV? The jungle, the woods, Tarzan. Somebody can't barely talk intelligently. They didn't show you how in certain parts of Africa, certain communities in Africa look like downtown Atlanta. But they don't show you that. You know why? Because they want your history to remain a mystery, so you'll never know who you are. Their history didn't start with slavery. Their history was very rich, just like our history. And your history was very rich. You got to stop letting people tell you who you are. Does anybody know who Abraham is? Abraham was the father of the Jewish nation. And when I tell you that everybody connected to Abraham was rich, everybody connected to Abraham was prosperous, Everybody connected to Abraham had wealth, generational wealth. God told Abraham in Genesis chapter 12, he said that I'm going to bless those that are connected to you. I'm going to bless your children. I'm going to bless your children's children. I'm going to bless the next generation far beyond you. Everybody connected to Abraham would be blessed. And so Abraham was the first generation. Isaac was the second generation. Jacob was the third generation. That's why you heard those old deacons and those old preachers always talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when they were praying, because those were the first three generations. And I'm telling you, they were powerful. That was a father, a son, and a grandson. Those were three generations. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were not brothers. They were not cousins. They were a father, a son, and a grandson. And then Jacob had 12 sons, the 12 tribes of Israel, and the youngest one was named Joseph. I'm reading through the book of Genesis, y'all. Y'all got to read your history when you get a chance. The whole book of Genesis talks about how Joseph struggled and how his brothers sold him out into slavery. But yet Joseph rose up in all of Egypt, and he became a great man, a wealthy man. And when his brothers saw him, they didn't even recognize him. And Joseph ended up hooking his brothers up, even though his brothers sold him out. The Bible's a good book if you ever open it up, I'm telling you. And so Joseph, who is the fourth generation from Abraham, even he was wealthy. So by the time you get to Exodus chapter 1 and verse number 7, the children of Israel are balling. They are just multiplying and exceeding, and they're mighty. And the Bible says that the land was full of them. But you want to know how they got into slavery? How they got captured, how they got taken over? Because verse 8 of Exodus chapter 1 says that there arose a new king over Egypt. The Israelites and the Egyptians used to be partners. But when the new king rose up, the Bible says he didn't know Joseph. He didn't know Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. He didn't know about the partnership. He didn't care nothing about Joseph. He didn't care nothing about the partnership. And so he began to get a little jealous of how the children of Israel were prospering. Point number 2, people who are wicked tend to stay worried. I won't preach today. I said people who are wicked tend to stay worried. People who are evil tend to be insecure. You ever had somebody worried about you and you ain't even done nothing to them? So somebody ought to help me preach here. Because people who are negative are always nervous about losing something. Always got to protect their turf and always got to keep you down because just your presence makes them nervous. You on that job, you ain't got no position, you ain't got no corner office, you ain't been there long as them, so you wondering to yourself, why they worry about me? I just got here. Why you hating on me? I'm young, I'm inexperienced. Why are you so worried about me? People who are shady tend to be shaky. People who are phony tend to be very fidgety around you. Pharaoh was wicked. And so he was always worried that his stuff was going to come back on him. He looked out at all them Israelites and he said, we got to do something about them. It's too many of them. They could raise up and take us. We got to hold them down. We can't, because he was nervous about keeping what he had because he didn't get what he had by honest means. Again, people who are wicked tend to stay worried. You wonder sometime why people go out of their way to be mean to you and you haven't done nothing to them? I'm talking about, no, they go out of their way to let you know they don't like you. Like they go overboard. They just go overcompensating, trying to show you that they don't care for you. And you like, what'd I do to you? Why? Okay. If you don't like me, why you talk about me so much? Like, why my name always rolling off your tongue so easily? Why you up at night thinking about me? If you can't stand me so much, why am I on your mind? Because trust me, the folk I ain't studying, I ain't thinking about. Ask your neighbor, why you worry about me? Why you worry about me? Your neighbor said, I ain't worried about you. And so that's how they ended up in bondage, because Pharaoh said, oh no, we finna make them slaves. We finna take them down a notch. They too powerful. They got too much confidence. So we got to bring them down. So here they are now, a nation waiting on freedom. 400 years they were slaves. 400 years they were in bondage. And so by the time you get to Exodus chapter 5, which is what was read in your hearing, it's the main text for our little discussion today. Moses is their leader, and he's got a message for Pharaoh. He says, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Pharaoh, let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness. This is point number 3. Freedom cannot be requested. Freedom must be demanded. Freedom cannot be requested. If you want to be free, it's got to be demanded. Nothing that has ever been gained by any group of people in this nation or any other nation has ever been accessed without a fight. Moses didn't go to Pharaoh saying, well, you know, Master, we was just kind of thinking, a group of us Israelites got together and we was just kind of thinking, is it all right if we go serve the Lord? He wasn't making a request. He was making a demand. You think about the history of our people. Please understand, everything we got had to be taken. Slavery didn't get abolished because we asked. I wish y'all wasn't scared to talk to me here. Slavery was not abolished because somebody made a request. It was because our people stood up and made a demand and said, this is not going to stand anymore. This is against the laws of humanity. You can't treat human beings like this. We ain't asking you, we telling you. The fight for civil rights, it was not requested, because when we tried that whole request thing, that whole let me see if the governor will meet with me and let's discuss it. Let me see if the president will give me 30 minutes of his precious time so we can discuss civil rights. How'd that work out? So folk got together and said, all right, you can't take the request. Well, here's our demand. We demand the right to vote. We demand equal treatment for women. We demand that you desegregate these schools. We demand health care that people can't afford. I'm getting into the 2015 now. We demand that homeless people be made some kind of reparations. We demand that you treat people like a human being, even if they don't have money. Treat them like a human being, even if they don't have what everybody else had. We're not asking you, we're demanding it. The modern day equivalent of making a demand, as I've seen it in Tallahassee, is when no students just slip out at the governor's office. Them dream defenders said, all right, you know, you don't want to hear us. We wrote you a letter. We called you, and you want to just appease us and pet us on the head. Okay, look, college students, we'll get with y'all later. They said, all right, let's get a few hundred of us up here, and let's just sleep in the hallway till he come back. You got to make demands for what you believe in. These were young people back in the 50s. This was your parents' generation. Back in the 60s, they were not 30 and 40 years old. These were college students. These were 20-some-year-olds that made up their mind that enough was enough. Why are you all waiting on older people to do what you should be doing? They done fought for what they were going to fight for. They fought for their generation's concern. But you and me got to now take up the fight and start fighting for the things that are relevant to us. But you don't get it if you don't demand it. So what that also means is that whatever you demand, you got to be also willing to stand for. What did the old folks say? If you don't stand for something, I'm sure I had some help in here, you will fall for anything. So it's not enough to just demand it with your mouth. You've also got to stand with your principles and stand on your feet and make some demands with your actions. And you got to learn how to speak with your dollar. Money talks. So you got to learn how to make money walk when certain institutions don't respect you as a people. You want certain things to change? Snatch the dollar from them. I'm trying to help y'all here. If you want certain institutions to recognize you, all you have to do is get together and say, all right, economically, we want them to feel our loss. That's what the bus boycott was all about. They said, okay, you trying to make us sit in the back? Well, guess what? We ain't going to ride this bus, which means you won't get our dollar no more, which means that you will feel that in your budget this year. And so they stuck to that because you have to stand for what you demand. I'm not being critical, but I have a right to be critical because I'm a leader of my generation and my work speaks for itself. I wonder sometimes what we stand for these days. What are y'all fighting for? We fighting each other, but we ain't fighting nothing. When's the last time we got together and said we need to change something? I'm worried about us. Because we don't stand for nothing no more. Those were young folk that sat at the lunch counters and got abused and spat on and beat on, trying to integrate the lunch counters. What are we standing for? Young black folk, young white folk, young Latino folk, what are we standing for? What are we demanding? What laws have we changed? Because you have to be willing to stand for it, not just demand it. Because after you leave the governor's office, because you can't stay there forever, after you leave from there, you need to march to class on time. See how quiet you got right there? You need to march into that class and get your lesson. You need to march to the library and study. You need to march to your room and close the door and write them papers like you're supposed to. You can't demand that you be treated fairly, but then you don't march on doing your part and doing what you're supposed to do as a person. If you're going to demand it, you got to stand for it. You don't demand the right to vote and then won't go vote. How sorry is that? I don't want to hear nothing about what you got to say about the government, about the president, about the Congress, about what these Republicans is out there doing if you did not go to the ballot box and let your voice be heard. Your great-grandmama died for you to vote. Your great-granddaddy got hung on a tree so you could have the right to vote, and you won't even go vote unless it's every 4 years. What do we stand for? We do a whole lot of talking, but we don't do no walking. My generation is outraged about everything. Everything is unfair. Everything is an injustice. Everybody's always mistreating us. But what do we do about it? You still spend your money with people that don't respect you, with institutions and with businesses and with stores that don't respect you. You still watch programming that's disrespectful to your mama and to the ladies in your family and to the community. You say you like women's rights and you want to stand up for women and you don't like the mistreatment of women, but you love the housewives. Your behavior is contradictory. What do we stand for? Don't worry, this is not going to be a long talk. I'm going to cut a lot of fat off of this one. But somebody ought to say, stay right in there, Pastor. Stay right in there. You cannot demand that the violence stop in your community, but then you won't stand up to some of these fools in your community. I'm sorry. Listen, if you're being mistreated, I will stand up for you. If somebody's doing wrong by you, I don't care who you are, I will stand up for you. But when people that look like me are terrorizing my community, when people that look like me are the perpetrators of crime in my community, when y'all are the ones that's messing up the South Side, when y'all are the ones that's throwing trash in your own community, when your brothers and your cousins are out there selling drugs to my kids, when your kinfolk are out there trying to recruit my son into a gang, I'm coming after you now, because you are the terrorist. You are the abuser. You are the one that's wrong. I ain't scared of you. I don't care what color you are. If you're wrong, you're wrong. I was just at Ricketts High School Friday morning talking to a group of ninth graders. And no sooner than I got through talking to them and school was dismissed, I'm walking outside with the principal and he said, just look over there. Right across the street from Ricketts High School is a bunch of jokers sitting on the sidewalk who don't even go to school, trying to recruit kids to be in gangs. So I said, Mr. Cook, well, what we gonna do? Mr. Cook said, you my guest, so I want you to stand right here, but watch this. Mr. Cook walked his 6'7" self across that street and told them 5 little hoodlums that was sitting over there for nothing. He said, what are y'all doing over here? What y'all want with my kid? Y'all need to get off of this sidewalk. You need to get away from my school. Why? Because you are not going to have our sons. You cannot have our little girls pimped out on this street. You will not sit around our school campuses terrorizing. The devil is a liar. We are standing up to you. I wonder if I can get somebody to stand with me, even if you don't rise on your feet. Just in your mind, we ain't taking this no more. I don't care if my cousin is selling drugs. I ain't having it. I don't care if my brother is out there doing it. I ain't having it. Everybody your color ain't your kind. I'm ready to work with some white folk if they doing right. I'm ready to work with some Hispanics if they got the right mind. Everybody that's on the Lord's side, we got to stand up. Thank you, Jesus. Can't just keep talking. Got to do some walking. Because there used to be a generation of folk. That's where I was going. Thank you, Holy Spirit. There used to be a generation of folk that wasn't scared to die. Martin Luther King wasn't scared of going to jail. And when he went to jail, he didn't go to jail for cocaine possession. He went to jail for justice. We going to jail for stupid stuff. These folk wasn't scared to get locked up. They were not scared to lose their life. Dr. King said, I may not get there with you, but we gonna get to this promised land even if I gotta take a bullet. Folk be talking about, well, you need to be careful how you be preaching up there. You don't know what kind of folk sitting out there. You don't know what kind of folk you gonna make mad. If this is my last sermon, if I got to die doing this, then please understand, I'm going to go out like a G, because God called me to this. God anointed me for this. God called me to tell the truth. And if I got to die, then God is going to raise up another 100 of y'all just like me, who going to keep on talking, who going to keep on telling the truth, because even if I die, God got some more of y'all out there. Tell your neighbor, I ain't scared. I ain't scared. You can't be scared to lose something. Can't be scared to have them talk bad about you. You got to say what God told you to say, because somebody's got to take a stand. My last point before we go to the table: freedom is about principle, not about a promise. You need to hear this. Freedom is not about a promise. It's all about principle. In other words, God did not say, let my people go so they could get to the promised land. That's not why he wanted them free. He didn't want them free so they could drink milk and honey. He didn't want them free so they could get rims on their chariot. Somebody ought to help me appreciate it. He didn't want them free so they can have a gold chain. He didn't want them free so they could live in a mansion. God said, this is about principle. Let my people go so they can serve me. That's why God wants you free, so you can serve him. This thing was about principle. God was mad because Pharaoh was being disrespectful. Y'all heard how arrogant he was, and you read in chapter 5 how arrogant he was. He said, who is this God that y'all are talking about? Who is this God that I got to obey him? Don't he know who I am? God said, oh, really? That's how you want to play this? That's how you don't know who I am? I'm going to show you who I am, because this thing is about principle. Brothers and sisters, we got to get out of this mentality that money equals freedom. It does not equal freedom. Just because you got a car don't mean you free now. Just because you can eat anywhere you want to eat doesn't mean you're free now. Just because you can go to school with them doesn't mean that you're free now. It doesn't mean the struggle is over. Just because we got a black man in the White House, ain't nobody did us no favor. We voted him. White folk voted him. Other folk voted him. It wasn't just black folk. That's not what freedom is. Freedom is more about principle than it is a promise. So preachers have to stop trying to get folk excited about promises. Your blessing is on the way. I feel it in my spirit. Your healing is on the way. Your deliverance is on the way. We got people hooked on being hooked up. We got people addicted to the gospel of health and wealth and prosperity. We want folk to be financially free. We want people to be physically, emotionally free. We want people to be free from salt and free from sugar. But have you ever stopped to ask, are they spiritually free? Because I'm going to tell you a secret. God could care less if you ever get a car. That ain't on the top of his list. God could care less if you ever get married. God could care less if you ever own a mansion. God could care less if you ever get a degree. If you don't put him first. If you don't keep him at the head of your life. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? It's good to have a car. Get two if you want to, but put God at the head of your life. Live in as many bedrooms as you can sleep in at one time, but make sure that you have God at the head of your life. Get as much money as you can legally, but make the master, not your money, the head of your life. I'm telling you, God wanted Pharaoh to recognize who he was. And so when you and I start putting wealth before we put God in our lives, understand that is your idol. Who is your Pharaoh? Oh, we all got one. What is the thing that's holding you hostage? What's stopping you from serving the Lord? Who is it that is prohibiting you from living the life that God wants you to live? That's your Pharaoh. Because God says, I want you free for me. I want you free so I can be your master. That's why Jesus said no man can serve two masters, love one, hate the other, hate one, love the other. You're going to have a master. It's just a question of who is your master. So that's why Jesus said, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, because my yoke is easy and my burden is light. You're going to be yoked up to something. You're going to be yoked up to somebody. But the question of the day is, who is your master? Because the definition of freedom that I gave you in the beginning can be very dangerous if you think about it. No boundaries, no rules, no restrictions, no prohibitions, just free to do what you want to do. God says, let me hurry up and step in here. You're not free to do your own thing, because one of my points here is, as long as you God's child, you don't have the right to be wrong. As long as you God's child, you don't have the right to do what you want to do. You don't have the right to do your own thing. You don't have the right to run around life like a teenager whose parents left you home for the weekend by yourself with a pocket full of money. No, God said, if you are my child, you don't have the right to be wrong. We have some rights in America that are human rights, constitutional, man-written rights. But guess what? Some of America's rights are still God's wrongs. This First Amendment right, I can say whatever I want to say. God said you got to have tongue control. You see, you break free from the world and you get tied right back up with God. He said, no, you don't have a right to say what you want to say. You don't have a right to push sin and just share every random, ridiculous thought you ever had. You got to have temperance. You don't have a right to cuss people out. No, you don't have the right. You got the vocabulary, but you don't have the right. It's still wrong, even if they needed cussing out. Have you ever had to just pray, Lord, just hold my tongue? Lord, just, you know what? Because I know this isn't right. I know this is not pleasing in your sight. I know I can't go tit for tat. I know I can't do evil for evil. Lord, I want to be pleasing to you. Why? Because I don't have a right to be wrong. You don't have a right to shoot and kill, even though America says you have the right to bear arms. You can't just shoot and kill at will. Because, okay, some people have taken that too far, haven't they? In the name of stand your ground. In the name of I felt threatened. In the name of you looked at me wrong. How I looked at you wrong? We was in the two separate cars at a red light. How is it that I looked at you wrong to the point where you get to drive past me and then stalk me some more and then pull out a gun and shoot me? I wasn't even close to you. You don't have a right to be wrong. Some people say, I have a right to love who I want to love. Oh, you knew I was going there. I ought to have a right to marry who I want to marry. I ought to have a right to do what I want to do. And I say, yes, you can. You can marry who, listen here, two men, I'm telling you right now, if you want to know what I think about it, two men can marry whoever they want to at the courthouse. You'll catch it in March sometime. Two women, you can marry whoever you want at the courthouse. But if you come to the church, if you're asking God's people to co-sign what the Bible says is an abomination, as much as I love you, I will never mistreat you. I will never let nobody mistreat you. But don't ask me to redefine what God has already put in place. You don't have a right to be wrong. That's why when you get saved, you surrender all of your thoughts. Because before you got saved, you thought a whole lot of stuff was all right. Before you got saved, you thought a whole lot of things were acceptable. But then when you got saved, all of a sudden this God consciousness kicked in. All of a sudden this conviction kicked in. And you said to yourself, you know what? Something about this just ain't right. I don't even know the Bible that good, but I know this right here ain't right. I don't even know a whole lot of scripture, but something in my spirit says this is not right. Something in my conscience said this is not right. You ain't going to change right away, but there's somebody sitting in here right now. You know what you're doing is wrong. You know the stuff you in is foolishness. And God said, just give it time. Just keep on coming to church. Just keep on praying. Just keep on reading the word, because after a while your wrongs will turn to getting right. People ask me, you know, what's your approach to dealing with, you know, them folk or this issue or that issue? I'm like, I don't have an approach. So yeah, you don't have a problem with gay people? I said, I got a problem with a whole lot of people. I don't hate gay people. For what? Look here. If you're going to hate sin, then let's round up all the sinners. Okay, I get it. We're uncomfortable with the idea of a woman with another woman. Okay, yeah. Well, you also ought to be uncomfortable with a man with 5 women. The reason they don't respect marriages is because they see a whole lot of us don't respect our marriage. See how quiet? Well, you saw how quiet it got up in there? Why should gay people try to come and play it straight and do it like God's people when God's folk marriages ain't even working? Maybe if they saw us walking a little straighter, maybe if they saw our relationship being a lot better, but they see cheating going on in the church. And that's why a lot of us have kind of quieted down. And we don't criticize as loud because, see, we see these folk out in the clubs. And they see us out in the clubs. They see us out in the community. And they don't know if we Christians or not, because we don't walk no straighter. Mm-hmm. What? No, okay. No, I ain't finna say it. No, I'm not. No. How do I approach it? Like you do any other sin. You approach a lesbian just like you would an alcoholic. Just like you would a liar. Just like you would somebody who can't keep other folks' stuff out of their pocket because you a thief. You just approach sin the same way. The wages of sin is death. The gift of God is eternal life. I'm in rehab for sin just like you in rehab for sin. Everybody's struggling with something. Everybody dealing with something. So we all got to come to the same hospital. We just got different sickness. Guy was telling me yesterday, he was like, Rev, reason I like you, and you know, I don't really usually publish stuff like this, but he was like, the reason I like you is because you put yourself in it. I was like, yeah, because I'm a sinner too. The preacher ain't above none of this. The preacher ain't above struggle. I ain't some angelic person just kind of floating through the community. Yes, my children, I'll see you on Sunday. Yes, God bless you. I'll see you at communion service. No, I'm struggling too. And I think people can appreciate you being honest and kind of shooting straight because, okay, well, if he's still struggling and he a man of God, well, you know what? I'm still struggling too, just trying to get there. All of us got the issue. What was my point? Sin. We don't have the right to be wrong, folks. And so I'll wrap up a little early by putting it to you this way. Pharaoh didn't want to let go of the Israelites because it was going to mess up his economy. The South was built on slavery. The South was built on cotton and tobacco and other industries that our foreparents helped make possible. And so when you think about the idea of abolishing slavery or letting the Israelites go or letting the people go, do you know how much money they were going to lose? Let me tell you the real reason why the owner of the Cleveland Cavs is so happy to have LeBron back. Because when LeBron made his announcement to say, I'm coming home, let me tell you what that did for the city of Cleveland. Not $500,000, not $5 million, not $50 million. Hear me, $500 million a year came back to Cleveland's economy when LeBron came. His contract ain't even half of that with the Cavs. The Cavs don't even pay him what he's worth. By one man making an announcement that he was going to play in a city, hotels, restaurants, other businesses, $500 million a year, $500 million from that one man. So imagine how that owner felt 4 years ago when LeBron said, I'm leaving. Y'all see what I'm getting at now? Because these boys jumping and shooting and running and dunking and putting, don't get me wrong, they get paid real good for what they do, but these economies are dependent on their skill set. So sometimes when you wonder why certain players, they sit out and they say, I'm not going to play unless y'all pay me what I'm worth and do this, because they know at the superstar level, some of them are worth billions to that city. I love Cleveland, but don't nobody want to live there? Ain't nobody saying, hey, let's go to Cleveland this weekend. Let's go turn up in Ohio this weekend. No, the only reason you go to Cleveland is to see LeBron. Now, I grew up in New Jersey, and don't nobody want to go there either. He was worth $500 million the moment he said, I'm coming back. What could we do if we got our money together? Whew. What could we do? I'm tired of talking about it now. I'm ready to do something like really, if we just put our pennies and put our dollars, if we could all get together, man, what could we do? But Pharaoh said, I can't let all of this free labor walk out of my door. So God says, all right, let me set you up for a 10-round fight. And it's really a fight that doesn't have to go 10 rounds, but I'm going to let it go 10 rounds because I want you to know my name at the end of this. God sent the first plague, turned the Nile River into blood, sent the frogs, sent the lice, sent the flies, killed all the cattle, broke out in sores all over Egypt. Sent rain and hail, sent the locusts to devour up all of their crops, sent darkness all over the land. After 9 rounds, Pharaoh still wouldn't let them go. And finally, in the 10th round, God rang the bell, and he said, this gonna be the knockout. I'm sending the death angel over all of Egypt. And the firstborn son of every household in Egypt is going to die. That death angel passes over all of Egypt, and you can hear weeping and wailing. You can hear the mothers literally screaming with their dead sons in their arms, and they're looking at Pharaoh. Pharaoh's wife is looking at him. How could you let this happen? Even we lost our son. How could you terrorize these Israelite folks? Didn't you know their God wasn't no joke? And finally, Pharaoh tapped out. He said, I can't take it no more. God, you a bad man. Whatever your people want, Moses, go tell your God to stop all of this. Whatever y'all want to, I will let his people go. But the last question you ought to ask me is, what happened on Israel's side? why they didn't see no blood in their water, why they didn't see no frogs in their houses, why no lice and no flies and no cattle and no sores on them, why did it not rain in hell? Have you ever seen it rain on Orange Avenue but the sun be shining on Tennessee Street? How is it that God can make it rain right here but shine over here? It's because God controls every consequence, every struggle. Why did the death angel not kill the Israelites? It's because God said, I want you to take a lamb and I want you to slay that ram. And I want you to take the blood from the lamb and spread it on the doorpost. I wish somebody knew where I was going. And God says, when I see the blood, I'm going to pass over. And what should have happened to you won't happen to you, all because you covered in the blood. Somebody ought to look back over your last 3 years. Somebody ought to look back over your last 6 months. Think about all the stuff that should have happened to you. Think about all the stuff that would have happened to you. But tell somebody, the reason I'm here is because the blood was covering me. The reason you didn't die is because the blood was covering you. Somebody ought to think about your last sickness. Think about your last circumstance. Don't leave me, y'all. I said think about your last battle. Think about your last Pharaoh. And you ought to give your testimony that the reason why I'm still here is because the blood was covering my house. Ask somebody, how did you make it when you should have lost your minds? How did you make it through last semester? How did you make it across that stage? Because you were covered by the blood. And right early one Friday morning, the blood of Jesus made a way for me. I was at the Red Sea, the devil behind me, the Red Sea in front of me, but Jesus stretched out on Calvary's cross. Tell somebody, he died just for me. He died to get me through the battle. He died to get me through the struggle. But I got good news for you, because he's not dead. He got up early. I'm trying to let it go here. I said he got up early Sunday morning and said, all power is in my hands. Is there anybody here been through some things? Anybody here been tied up through some things? Shake your neighbor's hands. Look them in the face. It's been a long day, y'all. But shake your neighbor's hands and tell them, neighbor, I'm free in the name of Jesus. I'm delivered in the name of Jesus. My past had me. My addiction had me. The devil had me. But tell them I'm free now. Free to shout. Free to dance. Free to serve. Free to love, free to help, free to give God glory. Is there anybody here glad to be free? Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Tell somebody I'm free. Yeah, I'm free. Praise the Lord. I'm free. Say yeah. Yeah! I'm free because I'm covered by the blood. I don't know what's holding you, but I know that there's power in the name of Jesus. And it's free to break every chain, free to break every addiction, every vice, every issue, all that stuff. He can break every chain to do for you what you can't do for yourself. And my friend, if you're here today, the brethren are standing, they're ready to receive you. The sisters are standing now, my friend, they're ready to receive you. The congregation is standing in prayer for you. And God has the power to break every chain. I can't get no more hints. You know what song I want. There's power. Get that microphone. In the name of Jesus. Sing it, Anime. Sing the song, Anime. Don't play with me. You knew what I was talking about the first time I said it. Trying to get them in trouble. You gotta sing that song like I said. Doors at church is open. Gotta break free.